Hi, and welcome to Global Student Voices, the podcast that brings you exciting stories and invaluable insights from students, educators, and thought leaders around the world. I'm your host, Coach Martin, with 30 years of experience in international education. Join us each time when we navigate the exciting journey between international secondary school and university. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Global Student Voices. I'm very, very excited to have some very good friends of mine. We've known each other for very long, given how young you guys are. We've known each other for a very long time. Maybe we'll get into how long, but I won't spoil everything. But we've known each other a long time. Donald and Stephanie Lingdo, all the way from Kodai International School in India. Are glad you guys are here, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the fun thing about this program is getting to talk to people all over the world. The challenging thing is you poor people that got up extra early to be on the show this morning. I appreciate that. That's one of the blessings and curses of doing what I do is I get to be around the world, but sometimes it means unusual times. So I appreciate you accommodating that. Donald and Stephanie, tell the folks a little bit about yourselves. And let's start just because it's fun. Start with how you guys met.
All right. So, long story, but we'll try and keep it as brief as possible. Steph's parents were working with Church of God Global Missions back in the 80s, and her father still does actually. And my parents were missionaries from India to Kenya, East Africa. And I was born in Kenya, East Africa. At that time, the leader of the Church of God Global Missions was Steph's grandfather, Donald Johnson. So I was named after him actually because he was visiting my parents on the day or week that I was born. And in fact, ironically, I was just reading one of my dad's journals the other day, and he mentioned how when I was 5 months old and Steph was a year and 5 months old, our families met together in Mombasa, Kenya. And, we didn't really know about this story until years later when we met in college. Obviously, with the time constraint that we have now, there were a lot of things in between as well. But one of the cool things as well is when I was applying to college from the school that I am at right now, actually, I'm an alumni from the school that we are teaching at right now. After applying, I came to find out that Scott, who was the international student director at Anderson University in Indiana, and he had babysat me and my brother when he was a student, not even a student, really young, not even a teenager, I think.
Yeah, high school. I was just starting high school.
Right. And so that was a cool connection. I learned that out from emails at that time, early 2000s, and my father then confirmed the story, and went to college, and Steph and I met.
Yeah. And met again.
The first time we talked was at your house.
Yeah, the first time we talked was at Scott's house when you guys used to host those what were they called? The
crashes. Crashes at our house. And I had my first crash for Purdue students on Friday and had a student from Cody at the crash. So what a crazy circular world this is.
Full circle.
Because of your amazing son sharing stories with this young lady from Cody, she already had the whole backstory.
Right.
So she was telling all her friends about this crazy small world and then realized that my cousin is married to your younger brother.
Right.
So we're family.
Right.
Yeah. So it's great to have family. So for people who don't know, one of the things I really want to talk a little bit about is Cody. Tell us a little bit about the school you're at. Now, obviously, you're an alumni from there, and now you're back teaching. Just for people, give them a little bit of a snapshot of what Cody's like.
Well, you can start.
Well, okay. So, it's 100 and the school's actually going to be celebrating 125 years next year. And even by today's standards, we are very remote. I mean, we are 2.5, 3, 4 hours away from the closest airport up this small mountain road. And it's amazing that in 1901, there was an American lady who just had a vision that this is going to be an educational institution for missionary kids. In India at that time, there were a lot of missionaries in India. There were a lot of, India was still under British rule. And a lot of mission organizations were finding it very difficult in the heat of the plains. And so she created a school up here, bought a property from a hotel that was also run by foreigners up here, and just sort of integrated the school and the community into what it is today. And it was really for missionary kids to be able to serve in southern India. And over the years, it's become an international school. It's changed its directions in many ways, educationally, socially, and things like that. And yeah, so we have people from all over the world, more and more domestically now, just given the way that the international market has turned.
I was going to say the majority of our students are
from India. But you can, and also you see a lot of diaspora, like the Indian diaspora coming back. So we have kids who are total, again, this will bring up the discussion of the TCKs and things like that, but they are totally, let's just say, quote unquote, American, never lived in India, but background ethnically Indian, and experiencing India again after generations of their families immigrating to the West or to other countries.
Okay.
One interesting fact that I always like to share about Kodai is a lot of alumni come back, and the alumni association is very strong. It's spread out all over the world. But whenever you see conflict around the world, we often get students from those areas. So, for example, we have a lot of Burmese students, we have a lot of Russian students. We had in the past few years, in the past 10 years, we've had 3 or 4 Afghani girls actually study at our school. And this dates back to World War II, when India, as an allied country, was, they took in German citizens and educated their kids here at our school. So it was one of the only schools around the world actually that has that legacy. And you can see the results and ramifications of that even years now till now. So that's from my perspective as an alumni and as a school.
Yeah.
It's an interesting school. I don't I don't know. I would say it's not for everybody, because there's a lot of layers that you have to really understand. And so from Steph's perspective,
I would agree that it's not for everybody, but I mean, it's definitely a special place. And like Donald said, people keep coming back, so there's got to be something to that. Yeah, I mean, I'm the kindergarten teacher here, and the elementary program is really small because it's almost entirely staff kids.
Okay.
The school doesn't take in day scholars. It's a residential school, and the
sure.
boarding
And doesn't have
program only starts in 5th grade.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I have 8 kids in my class.
And that's something that has changed over the years, more as these rules and regulations, and as international boarding schools policies have changed around the world, right? I mean, and you've come from international school background too. You're an alumni of an international school. You've worked at international schools, and there used to be a time when boarders were kindergarten or first grade, and I think for the better now that they've raised that age, because definitely kids need to be with their parents until certain ages.
Well, I think even 5th grade is really young, but that's what the school has decided.
Right.
Yeah, and I think some of that's the demand from parents,
right?
And pushing back.
We just lost power.
That's all right. We're still here.
Perfect international experience.
Exactly. Very, very common.
But your internet stayed on. This is fantastic.
Right. And that's part of it,
That's one of the reasons why it's not for everyone. You have to be willing to live a little more rustically.
Right. And we live in an area where it's very it's a ecological hotspot. So we have tons of people always visiting from all around the world. We just had students from NYU stay with us not with us, but with the school for a month, doing research in what is called the Palni Hills. We're in the southern Ghats of India, called the Palni Hills. So it's very common for Steph to be locking her classroom because monkeys are invading the classroom. Or yesterday there was a giant flying squirrel right outside our house, which scared Steph when she was returning home.
I thought it was a monkey, but then I looked up and I
saw or having to stay in the house for a few more minutes because there's bison roaming around. So those are kind of our it's We're also part of the green schools.
Well, there are elephants nearby.
Yeah, there's
the other day.
elephants nearby. There's tigers now within 20 kilometers of here. So that's something that also we are
Yeah.
right in the middle of. Yeah.
Add that little wild element. And I went to our RVA in Kenya, and we had that same, if you're going to go running early in the morning, make a little extra noise, make sure if there's Cape Buffalo on the soccer field.
Right.
Yeah.
I sometimes had to do a little cleanup before games.
Yeah.
Well, whenever I go on, pre-dawn runs, which I try to go a little bit later now, but people are not worried about me as far as like other people. They're worried about bison. So, yeah.
But you're very fast, Stephanie. So that's part of.
If a bison was chasing me, I probably would be.
Yeah. And
I do think
yeah,
Cody's has one of the most unique and storied histories. It's certainly one of the premier old school international schools in the world. I think in my mind, and I won't say them out loud because I don't want to make other people angry, but there's about 8 or 10 schools around the world that I think raise to that level of kind of the old guard. They're among the oldest. They're have the longest history of really extraordinary student production. And I'm using that word kind of cautiously because I don't think students are products. But I think if a school does produce something, it's students. And when you look at the impact that alumni have had, I think that's part of why your alumni association is strong, is you guys have been really impressive and for a long time. And I think been able to maintain that's very difficult to do for an institution to maintain that level of excellence over a long time, and to change. Like you've changed. I think that you're now an IB school.
Yeah, well, we are an IB school, but still offering like students have a choice, IB or the US curriculum, or now they've introduced also what's called the CP
Yeah,
curriculum.
see, that's crazy. I mean, offering all those programs is crazy. As a former principal, that just makes my head hurt.
And so we are
as
always
teachers. It kind of makes our heads
as
hurt
teachers
too.
also and so and it says, I mean, you go on our website and anywhere there's recruiting forms, it says we're teaching in the IB MYP curriculum, but within a American framework.
Yeah.
So we still do the SATs and all that, IELTS and all of that, but also over the years the culture also has, it keeps switching, right? They bring in some American culture in the traditions, and so we still have our field day, which around India everybody calls it a sports day, but here it's called a field day, just like all American language, and so yeah. But it's interesting, Steph and I, we often talk and compare our previous experience, because we were for 12 years we were at the International School of Qingdao over in in China,
right.
And culturally and socially, everything, that was such a big change. I mean, we went directly from the US and we often say that in China, that's where Steph and I really grew up,
Sure.
career-wise, and we were family. We weren't even a year married when we moved to China, and that was a great experience, because we were part of a school that had not even been more than 20 years. I think by the time we joined, it was only 10 years maybe, or something. Not even 10.
So you were there for half of its life.
Right. And it was so great to see all those changes that came up. One of the things that I often tell people that are interested in international schools is, one of the things that really attracted me to that school was this philosophy that the principal was saying, yeah, it doesn't matter, you're first year teacher, 20-year educator, or 20-year administrator, everybody gets paid the same,
Yeah.
And that was really fascinating. How do they do that? And it worked. It worked for a while, and then
it was a really small school.
Right.
So, I mean, when we joined, our whole teaching staff would fit in one apartment. And so we would have, a lot of get-togethers and things like that. It was really tight-knit. Mm-hmm. And so that's another way that there are tight-knit pockets here, but it's not like the whole school is cohesively tight-knit. One.
And that's another challenge that the school faces, but they've done a good job, is it doesn't have that feel of a big company yet, It's still a school. You can still feel it's a school. Whereas some of my friends do work at other big international schools and cities where they told me, oh, I joined this to get away from the corporate world, but I feel like I'm right back in the
Still
corporate
in it, yeah. And that's a difficult trap that's very easy to fall into, I think, for international schools. And I think sometimes schools they want to hold on to that family feel and
Mhm.
that kind of small school feel, but to do that they sacrifice elevating the school and having
Mhm.
excellence. And I think one thing that Kodai sets an example as a school that has continued to grow and continue to be excellent and to continue to meet the expectations of students and families who want to pursue next level education at the highest levels without without losing that community, without becoming just a test mongering kind of place where people are just overdriven and
Yeah, it's interesting and good too because there's so many international school pop-ups all around the world. I mean, this is not. I'm comparing in China also, where just 10 years ago it was very rare to have someone go to international schools, and now every other corner seems like there's an international school because you can name your school anything, and so there's all these international schools. But to do it in a way where to evolve with the way education is evolving is very hard actually. And that brings us back to our first point where Steph and I said this: it's not for everybody. Certain schools are not for everybody because if you
yeah,
go in with a certain expectation, it's just different. Here, KIS has always been known like as a school where they celebrate the arts and the sports and the academics all equally. And that's a constant battle because what the media says, what big cities say is it's all about the scores and things like that. And it's hard as a teacher sometimes not to fall into that trap, especially if
yeah.
you're coming from different educational backgrounds. But I think that, at least for me and Steph, our philosophy of education, we're really still trying to uphold that that everything is equal to the point where I don't know, like we care about our own kids' grades because they study at school too. Yeah,
Yeah,
we do, but I don't think we've ever really
We don't care about their
right,
grades. We don't. As parents, we've just always said, as long as you're doing your best, we don't care what that number is at the end at the end of the semester or whatever, the end
right.
of the quarter.
hey there, GSV listeners. Before we dive back into our conversation, I wanted to take a moment to thank our incredible guests, the students, school officials, and thought leaders who inspire us with their stories and insights. As you're listening today, be thinking of ways that you can support the guests of this show. There are links in the descriptions with just some of the ways. I'm Coach Martin, your host and your partner in navigating the university journey. Whether you're exploring university options, preparing for admissions, or seeking support during your academic path, my books provide practical guidance and insights to empower your university success. Join me in individual coaching, group sessions, or courses designed to equip you for university life and beyond.
I am from Brazil, but I attended an American school in Indonesia for my secondary education. So my situation was really confusing and really scary. Coach Martin really understands global students, and he loves helping us out.
Again, thank you for listening. Explore the podcast description for links and resources and contacts discussed in today's episode. Visit www.theglobalstudentsolutions.com to learn more and embark on your journey toward university success. Now, let's return to our conversation.
If we know that you're capable of more and you're coming back with terrible grades, that's a conversation, but that's not a conversation about the grade. It's about your effort,
Effort, yeah.
so
And it's pretty cool to see how much of the stress and everything is taken out just by those few sentences and words because then they're
for 2 out of 3 of our
Right.
kids, our third one is self-driven to
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see it that way, and because I'm primarily I'm a coach, right? I teach physical education and I work with a lot of students and there's a lot of there's this freedom in practicing what we learn in educational theory
Yeah.
on the field, because often we learn something in educational theory and we go into the classroom and we don't apply it. But the data and research shows, and so as a coach I'm able to apply that on the field, and it's really cool to see, because there's no stress, right? It doesn't matter you win or lose or whatever, but you can still apply that and see the learning. So that's important to me, the learning and the gaining of knowledge.
Do you think that part of the excellence that Cody has experienced is because of that balance of arts and sports and academics, that has created a kind of a culture where more students can thrive? Because if we're only participating in academics, there's only one top student.
Yeah.
Right. But if we have arts and sports and academics, then you can see more people's strengths get exposed.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm offering up my bias, but do you think that that's part of the reason that excellence has been able to flourish at places like Cody?
I think for sure. And also it really, again, I think even as we've been here, we've seen that tug of war of people who think we're a school, we need to focus more on academics, and the more old school Cody thought of the well-rounded student. And there is that tug of war, but when we came here, huge part of what we were excited about was the idea of a whole student approach. It's not just about your grades. It's about, and the residential school life also, I think, lends itself to that, because we're not responsible just for their 8 to 4 life. It's, it's beyond that too. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I mean, we definitely,
for sure,
the whole person, whole student approach.
Like, me in music, it's like night and day, and I don't do any music. But
I was wondering where you were going with that.
Yeah.
Steph does music. I mean, she likes it, she enjoys it, she's good at it. But both of us don't play an instrument, but our kids are, and this is true to the experience of any Cody kid that takes on the challenge of, oh, there's a music program, let me immerse myself in it. Oh, there's an art program, let me immerse myself in it. Like, so our kids are all into music. Benjamin is actually, this is where he learned welding. That's one of the things that he wants to do. I mean, this is where he learned it.
Well, yeah, I mean, at our previous school, if our kids had wanted to take music lessons, it would have had to be out of our pocket, outside of school hours. There was a music class and like general band, but Hosanna has just really flourished in the piano program, and she's today actually going on a weekend trip to this huge music festival that our school is involved in. And Benjamin is gone right now for a soccer/football tournament to another city, to Jaipur. And so, I mean, it's just, they're so involved in so many things outside of the academics.
Yeah.
So,
My son, Dominic, of course, and he was in Indonesia at an international school with us, and he would never have been in drama and music and band and played 3 varsity sports, and like, he would never have done that in the US. He would have everyone would have been just one thing. Pick your thing. Do your excellent. And I think, I don't know, I think that well-roundedness has served him as a human. I think he's just flourishing better as a human because he was able to develop multiple facets of himself. And I think about his experience in college and as a writer and a poet. I think that comes from expanding, like, our mind and body and everything, being able to explore and find excellence. And I think good international schools like RVA, where I went, like Cody, and like what we tried to create, where Dominic went, that's the idea, and it is hard, right? I mean, it's easier just to focus on one thing.
Yeah.
It's easier just to be an art school, or just to be have one area of excellence and just say, oh, we want all students who are excellent in music, and that's going to be our thing. But to create a place where people just explore and immerse themselves, it's a great life lesson. I mean, that's how you're excellent in life.
Right.
So why not have that?
Especially given today's climate, right? Whoever's looking for going into jobs and even the employment market has evolved, right?
Right.
And it's more and more we're seeing that kids who are majoring in whatever in college are not actually working in those majors. And
Right.
so I think this holistic development is much more important in giving life lessons and skills, because I think if I was an employer, if somebody was, forget the degree, if somebody was more emotionally intelligent or more they can think about others more, that would be more of an attractive candidate for me than somebody with a lot of papers and degrees and background who
Yeah.
doesn't know
Well, and like you said, when you go into college and you study, you have to pick something and you study that, you're not necessarily going to use that later on. And I feel like Kodai gives that opportunity to find what you like earlier on, because they can try so many different things.
Right.
They still may not know what they want to do later on, but
and
they've had lots
right.
of different experiences.
But even on top of that, though, the academic is still important to a lot of our students,
Of course.
which is why the conversations, I think, if you with the young lady from Kodai last week, if you ever ask her, I think her first year was super easy. I mean, because academically, and then, all the other social parts, she's already learned that from
First
Kodai.
year of
So
university.
first year of university, and that's the same theme for a lot of our students. They find the first year very easy because, and all the stress of socialization, how to act with others, the diversity that you're suddenly encountered with. Well, the students graduating from these international schools are already exposed to that diversity easy, So
Yeah, we talked this with the students on Friday. We talked a lot about how they serve as bridge builders. Like they're just naturally international school graduates are bridge builders by design.
right.
And how that can serve them very well at university. It can also be, there's some other things that can be a hindrance.
Mhm.
And you can do life badly, whatever your background is, but it certainly opens up the opportunity to be bridge builders, which is what an extraordinary gift to a university. Why wouldn't you want a room full of international student graduates?
But yeah, definitely
Yeah.
bridge building is.
Yeah, one of the coolest things I think I've seen is when my son Benjamin was hanging out with you guys and Dominic came over, and just how fast they connected, right? I mean, it's really, it would only happen with people who have a shared understanding of a specific background, which is why things like this are so easy, right?
But Benjamin and Dominic, in all fairness, Benjamin and Dominic are both people who just connect.
Right.
They're both kind of extraordinary in that social way. We were talking about that exact thing, how if that group from Purdue, you had a student from Saudi, one from France, one from Indonesia, one from Kodai, an American student with a multicultural background, and how that international school background, they just can connect. They connect so quickly and forget that they just met.
Yeah.
They very quickly feel like they've known each other a long time and the experience isn't exactly the same, but there's something shared about it. And I was telling them this story, and it just struck me. It was truth that I experienced at a Walmart here in West Lafayette. I was walking through with my wife Angie, and there were 3 girls that walked into Walmart, Indian or Pakistani of descent, and it's just people walking in, right? And I said to Angie, they went to international school, and she said, "You can't tell." I said, "Wait, just watch." She goes, "Oh, there is something different." And so she didn't graduate from international school, but she spent 7 years with me working there. And she said, "There is something different. There's a confidence, there's something in their gait." And as we were talking about them, and they're pretty far off, so we weren't making them feel awkward or anything. One of them turned back and looked at us, and she looked at Angie, and then she looked at me, and she raised her chin like this. She even recognized it in me, right? And I'm an old guy. Like, you don't think he went to international school. But she recognized, and this 3rd or 4th time in the last couple of weeks that I've noticed students see me and say, "There's something different about you. There's maybe something the way that we look at each other. I don't know what it is. It's kind of intangible, but it's real. Like it's a very real feeling." I think, those kids that came over on Friday, first time I'd met any of them except for Alia, first time I'd met them, they stayed 4.5 hours.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, my first year at AU was really hard because I was trying to find my place. Was looked American, sounded American, wasn't American inside, and couldn't figure out how to relate to Americans. And I spent a very lonely freshman year. And then sophomore year, I got connected with the international students through you and Angie, and I found my people. And I was like, there you guys have been. You've been here, all along, and I just needed to find you. And just that feeling of you get me. I am American by ethnicity or whatever, not ethnicity, by nationality.
Anyway.
But we've had these experiences. I grew up in Japan, you grew up, somewhere in Africa, but you get me, and so yeah, it was definitely I kind of get goosebumps when I think about it because it was just like you're my people.
Yeah, that to me, that's my motivation for everything I do with Global Student Solutions is all about having seen people like you, Stephanie, struggling in what appeared to be unnecessarily to me. Like
Yeah.
I know why you're lonely. And I know that there's a solution in community, but that's not something, it's hard to find. And schools aren't necessarily very good about creating safe spaces. And it has to be a safe space, right? It can't, until you adapt the culture, change the culture. I think, you're early on, Donald, you kind of remember your freshman and sophomore year. Most of the time, most of the place that people felt comfortable was at our house.
Right.
People then went back to campus and were still kind of acting.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think by your junior and certainly by your senior year, you already started to see the campus culture changing in a way where you guys started to feel more and more comfortable in the broader community.
Right.
And that comes with some numbers. So
Mhm.
my advice to colleges is stick with it for a few years because you got to build up some numbers.
Right.
And it builds with just really embracing the campus needs to embrace the uniqueness of having people from the international community. And I think the blending of the students who come from kind of a traditional international student background, you came from a national school in your home country. We were really blessed by having students like that, as well as students from international schools, both Americans that went to international schools, as well as nationals that went to international schools. That blending, whether or not you had a visa, having that shared experience, and then kind of merging that bridge building that happened. It's just that has to happen before you can have a culture that is owned by everyone, where the university then becomes yours and you're not just a guest. Yeah. What do you think? I wanted to jump, and I forget, I like talking to you guys, so we could do this all day, but you guys have to go to school today still.
We do.
I did want to ask, are there things now as parents, as dorm parents, you guys are intimately engaged with students all the time. And at Cody, your students are really confident, so it's a little bit of an anomaly, but are there things still that you've observed that students are struggling with or nervous about as they think about their future? And is there anything that kind of stands out to you as something you're just like, a lot of students seem to be struggling with or being nervous about?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't know if this answers your question, but I know that our school is really struggling with, and I think this is across the board globally, the struggles that come with kids being on technology a lot, social media and all that. And our school is trying to, because we're a residential school, where do you draw the line? When do you take phones away? What time? It's different because you're dealing with a whole school population as opposed to just your own child. You're not making a decision just, when you come home, you give me your phone. So there's been definite mental health issues stemming from too much social media, too much gadget is what they call it, gadget time here. And so right now the school is trying to come up with a new policy to limit that, but still not like over, it's such a hard give and take.
Really,
Even
I think it's a really hard parenting thing
yeah,
anyway. I mean, I
yeah,
think that's a hard balance to get for parents, and particularly once your kids are already addicted. now you're intervening in an addiction issue, that's high level psychology stuff, right?
Well,
Like,
and
we're not
actually,
prepared for that.
we've been getting messages as staff saying, if you know of a child who needs intervention, basically, and it's interesting and scary to hear electronic use being referred to in the same way that you would hear about drug use or
Right.
whatever.
If you ever, and ironically, if you ever want to talk about this on a podcast, you should connect with another former student at AU, Stephen.
Oh,
Stephen
yeah?
Batsong. Yeah, he's into this kind of like policy. I don't know what exactly he does, but it would be this topic. So it would be good for you
Okay.
to reach
Yeah,
out.
because this is a hot topic, I think,
Right.
across campuses, and I'm surely at boarding where you
Yeah.
integrate academic and social and parenting. Yeah, no doubt. We're as parents, I think we're poorly equipped, let alone as school teachers that are also doubling as extra parents and institutions.
Yeah. And and another thing is, I think a lot of the ramifications and the effects of COVID are actually still around. I remember years ago, the principal was at our school here was saying that we are probably going to see the effects even in 5-6 years down the line, and it's only been, I think, 4 years since the pandemic. And
Well, we're seeing kids now in middle school, and this is again globally, middle school who were in early elementary when it started.
So the effects of that, and also some of the older kids, given their situation at that time.
When you look at, sometimes I look at the middle schoolers and I'm like, how do they not know how to, of course they're middle schoolers. It's sometimes hard to tell, like, is this just regular middle school behavior or is this like middle school / COVID behavior? And
Yeah.
I think it's just heightened. A lot of the social skills were not learned or not practiced during those years. And so then you have parents who send them to boarding school after COVID was done. And we got the first couple of years after we opened back up were rough because it was just like, what you guys don't know how to, like, what is happening? Like, what are you doing? And there was a lot of disciplinary issues because of that. Just backlash of the scary few years that they'd been through.
Yeah. My observation with college students is that they maybe are doing okay academically, but they missed like the career piece, which I don't think was an intentional thing that schools didn't do, but I think when you're in the classroom, there must be more conversations about career stuff that happens day to day, because they're coming to college and they're much more career lost than they were pre-pandemic. And I don't think it's an academic issue. They seem to they can do the math and write, and they can do the college work, but they're more likely to have just kind of picked a major as opposed to really have thought through what they would be like in a career.
See, I wonder if part of that was with COVID, we were just going day to day,
Absolutely.
it was just get through this time, and so those you said classroom conversations and stuff. I agree with that, but I wonder if also like kids, like families just weren't talking long term anymore. They were just saying like, let's just get through this time. And so these conversations at home, in classrooms, within yourself of what do I want to be when I grow up, maybe those things took a pause.
Well, right. If you even subliminally, you're not sure if you're going to grow up.
Right.
Why would you think about what am I going to do when I grow up? Because you're not even thinking about growing up. You're just like trying to get to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it makes sense. It makes sense. And it'll be interesting to see kind of how long those effects. I think your administrator was thinking 6-7 years. I think that's optimistic, but I hope he's right and I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And we get past it faster.
Right.
And we don't have another one.
The beauty of teaching kindergarten, my kids either were not alive at that time or have zero memory of that. So,
but so those are some of the struggles, and I think kids now, and this is a good thing and a bad thing, but it's kind of a paradox where it is the kids have a lot of options, like you were saying. Different countries now are offering programs in English, good level of education. And we've seen that switch. Traditionally, it used to be the US and UK where our students would find themselves. But now Japan, Korea, I mean, there are a lot of options. The Netherlands, Czech Republic, and these are not just your programs like come here, study culture and language. These are veterinary programs, doctor programs. These are, and closer to home to some of these private institutions that have opened up in India are pretty phenomenal, actually.
Yeah, I met not long ago. I'm actually hoping to have her on the podcast. I met one of the administrators at one of the liberal arts schools in India, and I was super impressed. It actually, a lot of the value and virtue that we got to experience at the college where we went is reflected in what they're doing now in India. And I was thinking, actually, go back 5-6 years, I wouldn't have been too upset if Dominic had chosen to go there. It just was a good, strong academics, but also the whole person continued to be a theme of how they were continuing the education. So, well, you guys, you've been fantastic. I know you have to get on with your day and have a bunch of kids to get ready for school, but thank you guys so much. And we look forward to talking to you again. Donald, we need to talk sports and athletics at some point. But for now, thank you guys. I wish you nothing but the best. I hope that as this year continues, that you can look back and say, hey, this one turned out really beautifully. That's certainly our wish and our prayer for you guys. So take care. Hugs to the family. And thanks again for being on.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. Don't leave.
Thanks for tuning into Global Student Voices. We're committed to bringing you the best advice and to share stories from global students and educators. We need your help. Make sure you subscribe, share, rate, and review our podcast. Follow us on social media for more updates, and we'll see you next time. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring.